I am super excited to be with you this evening. Welcome to BTG, Bridging the Gap, Strategizing for Student Success. My name is Marissa Bludorn. I am the founder and CEO of BTG and the executive editor in chief of Own It Magazine and Publishing. BTG is a subsidiary. It's for our young people of the Own It magazine. We speak to the life of the child. We speak to the career opportunities for the young people. And if they want to be young entrepreneurs, we speak to that as well. Taking center stage and owning it, we bridging the gap, strategizing for student success is Dr. P is in the house. I love these touch screens. Come on, mama. And so she is in the house. And then we have Coach Alonda. She is in the house with us today, too. And I'm super excited to have her as well. She is taking center stage and owning it. So it's all women tonight, even though we do have some men on our platform. There, we are all women tonight, and we just say, Coach Ray, we are missing you, and we know that you'll be here with us next week, and so we're excited about that. And so, ladies, it is the month of February, and we are focusing on our the heartbeat of our young people. And so, I just want to go around. I know that you guys pretty much have more direct contact than I do at this time. But soon and very soon, we will be having a youth leadership Toastmasters club here in the Dominican Republic. And I'm super excited as things begin to build up here in the DR to be able to launch that for them and teach their young people about public speaking and building up the confidence and becoming professional in their presentations, etc. So I'm really excited about that. So, ladies, let's talk about this because I know last week we tapped into it about young people. Remember, in the African American community, I know that we've always had that saying that says the children are to be seen and not be heard. We're familiar with that, right? And my love language as a young person has always been communication. And so for me, this is a little, this is dear to my heart in regards to our young people and really, making sure that they are seen and heard because that hurts their heart to hear that they can be seen and not be heard. That's a heartbreaker in and of itself. So, Dr. P, you want to share a little bit about your experience in young people and just really supporting them in their heart and the contingent, especially when we think about ADHD, when we think about anxiety amongst our young people, behavioral problems amongst our young people. Those are the top three things that our young people are dealing with as they are entering this world and trying to evolve into adulthood because we're talking about adolescents. They're trying to become adults and they're trying to navigate through all of this and they really need our support.
They do. And as you're talking, it's always amazing to me that when we all start talking, you almost wonder, okay, what am I going to say? How am I going to relate? I'm an adult now. I'm not going to remember everything I talk to our children about. But you actually said something really important as you're talking about literally what we say bridging the gap. And we go from, of course, being children to adolescent to older teenager, college, hopefully, things like that. And one of the best things as we are able to go ahead and push them forward, I'm thinking back on remembering a time in college, and you're talking about public speaking. And I really must say, I can thank the public speaking coach. And she was actually telling us to call her coach, not professor. But I remember that she wanted to show us that it was okay to speak, and you had all type of people in this class, but she said don't be afraid to speak. So of course we know that's easier said than done, because
Mhm.
even as children, some of them are not, and some of us are not encouraged to speak up. Like you said, children maybe are told they should be seen and not heard. But she actually said you have to remember that when you're talking about speaking, the majority of the people in the room with you actually admire the fact that you have the courage to speak. And I never forgot that. So the little stereotypic of, imagine your audience not fully clothed. which is always was always a little goofy to me. So, but she told us that she said, remember those people out there, they're admiring the fact that you can have the courage to speak, and that I've always been the person who was encouraged to speak growing up, thankfully. But at the same time, those of the students that we know were not encouraged for that, even as peers, part of what we need to do even to ingrain in some of the students and some of the children that we deal with, if you do have that outspoken student and they can maybe help their peers be unafraid to speak, that's so important, because
Hmm.
peers turn into mentors. They are also mentees. So we all play this role. We put on, as some a friend of mine said today, we wear so many different hats, but you're never too young to go ahead and put on your hat to who you want to become. So if
Yeah.
you want to be a future leader, that's part of what our job is, to show you how to do that. But at the same time, you as a peer, sometimes I think our young people also find that just to be a better thing they can't handle, or they think they can't handle their own lives, but they can usually handle their peers pretty well, and they can encourage their peers. So that's what we want to be able to give them, that opportunity to show them you can start wearing all the hats now at a young age. And hopefully, as we, show you how to speak, show you how to be courageous, even when you don't know everything you're going to say, but just start speaking, you'll be amazed. People admire that you want to speak and that you want to be heard. So speak and be heard.
And be heard, and be heard. That was so full of so many nuggets, that it wasn't funny. And I think that what happens in our culture, in the African American culture, and even in the American culture in general, is that we don't have very mature, grounded, non-judgmental, non-sarcastic conversations with our young people. We get smart with them, we get sarcastic with them, but we don't have adult, mature conversations. And I'll say this because I got a chance to just sit back and watch. I've been a Toastmaster since about 2015. And I did that intentionally for the path that I was going because I wanted to improve on my public speaking. As part of that journey to becoming a distinguished Toastmaster, I had the privilege of working with a large, which is unusual for the youth leadership Toastmasters program. Large. They did a program, ETS, out of Princeton, New Jersey, did a every year, and I'm pretty sure they're probably still doing it. But every year they did a 12-week program, and that 12-week program consisted from kindergarten, which is not something that they normally do, all the way up to high school. So the mature majority of this population was of the Indian culture, right? Wasn't even Asian, Oriental Asian. It wasn't that. These were Indian, all different, ethnicities, and under the Indian culture. And it was interesting to hear them speak. They spoke very maturely. If you weren't looking at the child, you would think you were talking to an adult. That's and it wasn't, you saw them act like kids at times, but they had already designed remote robots that cleaned the floors. So when it came time for them to do their speeches, they were not talking about foolish stuff. They were really speaking to politics, um, um, all the things that went on in politics, and who voted what kind of way and when and what. So our children, and I'm going to say this, I don't care if you have money or you don't have money. It does not matter. It's about the conversations you are having with your kids during dinner, during the drives to and fro activities. What is your conversation? Are you talking about sneakers? Are you talking about people being put in office that's going to make or break some of the decisions and make the laws that are being passed? So I may get some bite back, but I don't care. It's about the conversations we are having with our children that become what they begin to prioritize. And so, I say that to say these kids, when you got to them, they were so mature, that you could have conversations with them for improvement in their speaking, improvement in their delivery, and building of confidence. Even though they were mature, they're still kids. Even though they were having adult like conversations and understood what they were talking about, because they weren't treated like they would not understand. See, that's the difference. Because they were not treated like they would not understand the information that was being given to them, they didn't respond like they would not understand. They responded the way that they were, introduced to thinking. So if you introduce this thinking or mindset to our young people early on that they can do these things, that they have the ability to do them, not you'll never do anything. You're not da 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 da. If we stop doing that and we start saying you can do this, you can do this. Here's the key. Open the door. We take the time to teach them these things. We can have these kind of conversations, and it has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with what we're making a priority. And Alonda, I'm going to let you kind of, I wasn't expecting to say that. That's not where I was going. But I'm sitting, and I did this for a few years with these young people. And I got to observe, and that's what I do naturally. I observe human behavior, and I sit back and I assess. I look at all the variables, and I'm fair and I'm just, and I just say we make the small things our priority to feed into our children instead of the right things to feed into them. And then we wonder why have ADHD. Then we wonder why they're anxious. Then we wonder why they have behavioral problems because we didn't talk to them. We didn't take the time and stop thinking of ourselves and how much of a responsibility our children are. We should be thinking of them as how much of a blessing. They did not ask to be here. Don't project that stuff on them. You're an adult. Hold it, put it where it belongs, and not on the baby. So I'm sorry, Alonda. Go ahead.
Oh no, 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 no. Like no, really everything that you said truthfully is totally true. And it's interesting because me being a parent of three, me being a mentor of young teenagers to young adults, we were just having this conversation that tonight at parent teacher conference. Like we have to put adults that are going to be safe people to advocate for our children, especially when they come from a home where advocation is not prevalent, or they don't have a voice, they're not allowed to speak, and their parents are still of the old way, do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
I think like not only is it important to have certain conversations with them, but it's also important to understand them so that we can know where to guide them, where the deficits are. So I'm of the firm believer I was the talkative child, and so I allow my children to have a voice. And not
Mm-hmm.
only that, I think it's very important to let them have a voice and to provide understanding for them so that they can, like you said, not be anxious. They can learn to trust what you are pouring into them and trust their own interpretation. So, while those years, those small little years that you have them, where to course correct. And I think that's the issue. That's the difference with the younger generation now from our generation. I was talking to another parent. We're in the millennial generation, and I was just saying that our kids don't get enough opportunities to apply the knowledge that we're pouring into them. So therefore, they have more anxiety because they are not having the practicum that we had when we were growing up. We
Mm-hmm.
had to be in situations where we had to actually be latchkey kids, and we had to figure out and communicate with our peers. And I'm just, as a parent, it's kind of scary because I'm noticing that they're not even developing those skills one to another with their peers because we are not giving them the tools at home to even facilitate conversations amongst themselves as peers. And it's sad. So I make my kids role play situations, and my mom's a little old school, so she's like, you yeah, I'm gonna let them do it because I need to know, and I want them to know that I trust you, and it's okay to make a mistake. We
Right.
still got time to get it right. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely let my kids go through situations, and they probably like, "You're crazy as a parent," but you know, I hope and pray that they will thank me for it later. I'm like, it's me and God raising these kids, and we gonna be okay. You know what I mean? So I
Hmm.
definitely feel like we need to provide a place of understanding for them as well, and encourage them to trust their voice.
And we have to allow real life application of these things, because if we don't, it's just theory, right? So it's
Right.
just us telling them. But if we don't, and I can remember, okay, case in point, I can remember when my youngest daughter was going to Australia. First she was going to China. She was first going to China, but then we were having the Olympics in China, and there was so much going on with the news about, remember China, they will beat your kid, or your kid do something,
Really?
they will beat your kid.
They'll
And
kill them
so
too.
I said, "Oh no, I'm not the mom for somebody to be beating my kid. I will turn into Superwoman for real, fly over there and whoop some tail. I'm not the one for you touching my kids." So I made an executive decision to say she's not going to China. She
Mhm.
is going. So another opportunity with Ron Luce, Teen Mania, and there's some things out there about Teen Mania, but you know what? I think that there's a heart going on over there, and we as givers don't seem to manage stuff correctly. But
Mhm.
Teen Mania offered a great deal of opportunity for young people to go over and minister. And my daughter had a chance to go to Australia with them. Well, me and all my haste and changing plans never thought about the flight. It's an 18-hour flight to Australia.
Mhm.
My child was still in high school. I literally had to trust the whole situation
Yeah.
to send her over there. I really did. And for me as a parent, I didn't have growing up as a kid. My kid does not, I mean, they couldn't even relate to what I went through as a young person coming up, because they just did not have that lifestyle. And so, sending her over there was because I knew how you got to let your kids go to grow. If
Mhm.
you don't let them go, they'll never grow. And if you don't test them or allow them to be tested while they're in the house, now they got to go through that test out there in the street. And let me tell you, my mom said, I remember, because like I said, I love communication. That's one of my biggest love language. And I remember riding in the car because nobody in my family communicated. I remember driving in the car with my sister. We were having some kind of conversation that was not going in the direction that I felt like it should have. And I jumped out that car and left. And she wasn't going fast, but I jumped out that car, got out of the car, and left. My sister proceeded to go home, and she said to my mom, she says, "Mom, aren't you going to go look for Marissa? Marty. Aren't you going to go look for Marty?" And my mom said to her, "Tanya, if that was you out there, I'd go after you. Marissa can handle herself in the street. She's okay. I'm not worried about her."
Mhm.
Now my mom left this earth when I was in my late 20s. I know my mom can leave the earth in peace and not have to worry because her kids were already established. So you want to make sure that you allow your children to be stretched. God forbid you're not here tomorrow. The last thing you want to do is leave your child. Your child's already going to hurt because you're gone. You don't want to leave your child so frail
Yeah.
and protected or shattered in their spirit that are they can't handle you not being around. Like they can't handle it. You got to make sure that your children at the adequate stages of development. You can't do anything if they're too little. But if they're in their adolescence, and that's where we're really speaking to, you want to make sure that you are having the most difficult conversations with your kids, that you don't really want to talk about that stuff. We talked about group sex, and we talked about all of that because that was plaguing the kids. When my kids were teens, they were doing all kinds of stuff that they had no business doing. And most parents don't talk to their kids enough to find out and know what's going on. One thing is for sure, the kids had rights and permission to come hang out at Miss Marty's house. Why? Because I know what you're doing at my house. I'm watching. I'm knowing what you do. I want you to have fun. I want y'all to have fun, fun, fun. But you're gonna have clean fun at my house. You're gonna have clean fun at my house. And that's a sacrifice. And a lot of times most adults don't want to sacrifice like that. And they don't understand that this is only for a minute, because in a minute your kids are gonna be gone. Right?
They don't want to sacrifice on the front end and they end up sacrificing on the back end.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there you go. Glad you said it, Coach Yolanda. Glad
Mhm.
you said it.
Yeah, you're right though. Our house was always the safe haven house too growing up. Like, and even if you didn't know what conversation you could have and you like I need to step my toe in the water, but I don't know what temperature it's going to be.
Yeah,
Our parents always had this thing. We had this thing. I have a friend and you could come with the hypothetical conversation to kind of get a feel of how you should approach the situation. And I always appreciated that because you like, okay, I can kind of trial run. I didn't need to use the hypothetical. I just was the kid that was like, I'm gonna just if I did something wrong, I'm gonna just take my
yeah.
punishment.
Me
But
too.
my brothers, but I was the youngest kid, so I kind of learned what was already gonna kill me and what wasn't. But uh but the fact that my brother's friends and everybody like our house was always a safe haven house. And so you know, I avoided a lot of trauma and incidents because of that. You know what I'm saying? Because it was like, y'all can come here. You know what I'm saying? We know what's going on over here. And I've carried on the same tradition as a parent. My daughter kind of hates it now because she's a teenager. So she's like, why do y'all always want to talk to my mom? Because mom comes with understanding.
Yes.
I don't judge. You know what I'm saying? And I let them know, like, now hold on now, before you bare your guts. If you say XYZ, I'm letting you know. I'm tagging your parent in. I'm not gonna be the bearer of craziness.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly it. Hmm.
Yeah, but I'll let you get your trial run in on your speech. But you definitely gotta come clean. You gotta be honest and transparent. But I just think that just talking to the youth, that is something that they want more than anything is to be understood. Just a safe place to just, say because they are faced with a lot of crazier things because they're daredevils. They out here trying things and we like, whoa, we never had no desire to do that type of stuff, but they're curious. And so it's like if you don't open up that window for them to be able to talk to you or talk to somebody, maybe you don't have the tools. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Counseling is real, and I stay in my lane, but you do have to
Yeah.
stay in your lane as a parent. You do have to allow your kids to have some outside counsel because I think that there's a fine line between that too, being an overbearing parent as well. But you have to know your strengths and weaknesses, but when you are weak in an area or you're not equipped, you have to tag someone in. You have to put them in alignment. Maybe it's a youth group at church. Maybe they do need a mentor that'll come to the school. Like, don't be I feel like with us and our community, it's always don't tell me how to raise my kids. Sis, bro, that's the days of old. We got different. We raising kids in a totally different world, and you will lose your child before you even know your child. It's
Hmm.
those days are gone, 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 gone. Tag somebody in, get them involved in some other things outside of you. If you know that you didn't grow up with those skills, and it's all types of free help out here. It's all types of support groups out here. Get some advice. If it don't apply, let it fly. You know what I'm saying? Well, my
Hmm.
mom likes to say, chew the meat and spit out the bones. And you
There you go.
Go
tweak
through the
whatever
process.
you hear, but we gotta get out of that not developing ourselves because of work for my grandma and it worked for my mama. Child, they was not raising kids in this world that we raised ours in. They not.
No, they're not. They're not. And just like you said, back in the day, one thing was true though, that we threw out. that we threw out because adults wanted to do adults and they didn't want other adults in their business. But the one thing that we did do that when we were kids that held us accountable is our neighborhood. So I can remember as a kid, we would come together as a flock and we would go out on adventures and do all this crazy stuff. But one thing is for sure, when we came back to the block, we knew if there was any adult on that block that saw us doing anything we didn't have any business doing,
They
they were
check.
going to tell. They're going to
Mhm.
tell on us. And that was it. And so you always had to make sure you respect the elders on the block. You made sure that you were respectful. If they were carrying bags in or whatever, you say, "Can I help you?" or whatever. You just did right by the adults in your community. That is something that we definitely desperately need back, because those adults were the eyes for the parents of the latchkey kids.
Mhm.
They helped the
Mhm.
parents of the latchkey kids to make sure that their kids were safe and sound. And so that is something that we really have to return to in the sense of accountability. And back
Bring
then,
back the village for sure.
yes,
That's
because
what
the kids, the family, the communities are struggling, and around, you look around and you just see it.
survived, if you think about it. When you say the village, that's the only reason we as a people have survived. We've had to always take care of each other. And just because we live in these different times, that's part of what we have to make sure. We have to keep taking care of each other
Hmm.
as parents, as adults. You can't give any wisdom at all to anybody.
No,
You're not even going to try to seek it yourself anymore.
I think that's also too why the kids today don't know how to what is a true friendship either, because somewhere we broke down the community of the village, and so they don't even know what true relationship is or how to network together and how to rely on each other.
Hmm.
I remember when my nephew was getting ready to go to college, and I was telling him, like, you're getting ready to learn the true art of networking. This is where it begins. You're gonna have to learn how to borrow something from that hallway to make it through the week, and you're gonna have to give up something. You know what I'm saying? Like that is the art of negotiation. You learn that, you know what I'm saying, by networking and bartering together. And I just feel like, even me now, I tell my kids, like, don't go into the room with your peers and don't speak. Like, everybody's like holding out and waiting for the first person to say hi. If you don't go in here and say hi, my name is such and such, I gave you your name proudly. Be proud to carry the name and go in there with honor, with your head held high, and start the conversation off. I raised you a leader. Don't be afraid to start.
yep, yep,
And
yep,
you,
yep. And
Coach
that's and
Alonda, you were talking about that, and we actually just had that conversation today. My grandfather was the one that he would always say, if you walk in a room, you speak. You're the newcomer to the room and make
Mhm.
yourself noticed. That's so powerful because you can realize through the whole part of your day how people will not talk to each other if you don't start that way.
And you know what? Cell phones, everybody not having a house phone anymore, too. I just thought about, when somebody used to call your house and they had the wrong number, you'd be like, who's calling? No, you call here. Who is calling my
right.
house? You know what I'm saying? Kids would never know that. So, like, that, even that small thing is a
Yeah.
breakdown for them as well. Like, there are so many different things. They're so far removed from just the art of basic language in conversation and just the art of knowing personalities and stuff like that, and just like you bring I that's a movement. Bring the village back, because
Mhm.
I just think about even now when kids come around adults, they're like, there's no fear. Like, I still get fearful, like, oh, don't say that in the room. It's too look. I'll go in here, like, even though I'm the parent now, I'm like, oh, it's still some other people parents in here. Let me not tell that part of the story. I'll tell y'all later. You know what I mean? But these kids, they don't have that. It's sad. It's no censorship. We and then we as adults also have lost our censorship. So it's like, if we are dropping our defense, like you said, Marissa, like Miss Marissa, like, you know, just not even just that village is so vital. Just the,
It's
the
vital.
the architecture of the village is so
And
vital.
I'm gonna say this. It was dismantled for a reason. It was dismantled to get to our children and adults. thinking about themselves allowed it to be dismantled because they were not protecting their children, they were protecting their own business. Because it's like, mind your business so that they can go and do whatever it is they want to do and not really make their children a priority.
Mhm.
And so that's what that was. And because we threw the baby out with the bathwater, even with chores, just simple chores, children want to know the way of life. I don't care what generation you are in, everyone wants to know how this thing works. And as adults and the wise ones around them, we have got to make sure that they learn well enough that they're in rhythm and in sync with us. Because guess what? We got to go back and give them the baton because as we are leaving the earth, we are it's our responsibility to prepare them to take care of it in our absence. So we got to pass the baton. So we got to make sure that they know how to focus. No more ADHD. We got to make sure that they're confident. No more anxiety. We got to make sure that they understand responsibility. So their behavior is in check and appropriate. We have to do that. And that means it's just for a season. Parenting is for a season and it's concentrated amount. And
Mhm.
if someone would have told me instead of in our community saying, "Oh my God, she's pregnant again," "Oh my gosh, she having a baby," in other communities they are not um, being as negative as our black communities about having children. In another community, the reason why they have so many kids is don't you dare get an abortion. We're not having that. You're gonna have the baby, and we're gonna help you.
But their village is still intact. That's the thing. The village is still intact because they're like, you know what? It's our job to step up and help and make sure that these kids are secure. And it doesn't matter. It's like if you come from my lineage, I'm going to make sure that you're secured at whatever age you are. And that is something too. Like I was going to say, I encourage us to do better as parents. And network with each other about things that you don't know, like you said about the college process. Like, it's okay, your kids is getting offer letters, but is that the best offer for them? You know, stuff
Right.
like that, not putting them in debt prematurely, just different things that we would set them up better if we would humble ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And also, too, teaching our kids to learn about other cultures, because as you said, the world is a big different place outside of what we know in our small little hut. And I say your house is a small little hut in a small little tiny corner of the world. And there's such a big world out here. And I just say that because all the time, like, you know, fortunately for me, I've been blessed to travel a lot of different places. And you know, it's so funny just hearing people the offenses that they take with other cultures. And I'm like, oh no, they weren't trying to offend you. That's their culture.
Yeah. Oh
Mhm.
yeah. Oh there.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When you get to go out there in the world and you get to see, you have more respect as opposed to having the assumption of what people are about and what people do. You also have an appreciation for how why they do the things that they do, why they have the traditions that they have, why the children stay inside the family until they're a much older. Instead, we're trying to send our kids out and we haven't even prepared them. In other cultures, they are encouraged to stay, build a nest
Hey,
egg,
yes.
then go out. Until you have X amount of dollars in your account, you can't go nowhere. You got to do this. Instead, we're so focused on, hey, get out of here. I need my life back. Okay, but you sent them out there to the wolves, honey. So it's like, no, let's take the time to prepare them. And then also too with parents, instead of you worrying about your relationship with each other, focus on how you guys have to come together, right? Again, it goes back to eliminating all of this stuff, the ADHD, the anxiety, behavior problems. It gets resolved when the two people who created the baby, who created the child, get in sync with each other. Instead of doing this, get in sync and get together, looking at the greater good, which is only temporary. Before you know it, your kids are going to be grown and out the door. And you won't feel how little of a time that is until you have gotten to the other side. But if we can wake people, parents up in the midst of parenting and say, hey, this time is going to go by. This time, so seize the moment of what you have that you can pour into your child and equip them to go out into a society. Because guess what? You're sending your assignment, which is your children, out to the society to show up. And some of that's showing up is dysfunctional, it's angry, it's violent, because you're not taking care of it at home. And so that's another thing that we need to really begin to let parents know. It's like, I looked up and said, okay, just look at me. My children are 30 and 35 years old. 30 and 35 years old. Most people look at me and think I'm 30 or 35 years old. No, my children. And when I looked up, and I didn't have them too early, but when I looked up, I said, oh my God, they're grown. Like they are literally grown. Your time has, like, if you don't get them, that time goes by. You may miss the opportunity to pour into them what you really wanted them to have before they became adults.
I was even say this that the short the season of parenting is even shorter now because kids have different opportunities that we didn't have to leave home earlier. And so you literally the clock is on from birth to I would even say your child is establishing their independence from 5 to 16. You really only got that short window of time with them to get it right. But what I also want to challenge other parents such as myself if you have school agers, stop showing up offended. When you go to the parent teacher conference and they tell you that your child has the issue that you need to look into, stop showing up offended because it's contrary to popular belief. A lot of these teachers are not against you. They're actually advocating sometimes harder than you are for your own child because they see they're spending more time with them and
Mm-hmm.
they're aware of the deficits. So I would encourage you, like, yeah, if your child does have ADHD, if they do have a speech impediment, I definitely want to see more Black children get speech therapy because that, especially in young Black boys, because that also plays a large factor in their frustration. It plays a factor in them their ability to read and to go and to negotiate. If we walking around calling ourselves kings and queens, please let us prepare the throne for them to be in their rightful place. Let us prepare them when they're children to get these free advocate for your child while they're in school to get these services. You know what I'm saying? If something is not quite right, set your pride aside. When you go into your pediatrician, you doing these evaluations, don't go in there and beat your chest like man's hitting all of these accolades and you know, or these milestones and you know that they really not because you're not really sitting down with them and you know you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Be
Mm-hmm.
truthful and say, you know, I'm not quite sure. I never really seen him do that. So that somebody can put their eyes on your child because there are a lot of things that are right in front of our faces as parents that are going undiagnosed and then we're showing up offended and it's only hurting our child. Your ego is only going to hurt your child. You need
Yeah.
to advocate for him. Just like you breaking your neck to go to work so he can have all the latest clothes. Please break your neck to be at parent teacher conferences. I'm tired of going. My kids went to private school for a long time, and the majority of the kids there were multiracial. And I'm looking like I'm the only Black parent in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
volunteered. I scooped lunch at the cafeteria. I was the room parent. You know what I'm saying? If you want different results for your child, stand up and be the change. Stand up and be the change. I worked. I was a single parent. It's no excuse. It's no excuse. If you got to take your lunch hour, you know what I'm saying? Whatever you got to do, make the adjustments and stop. Because this is the thing. Y'all put too much credit on the school for what they're supposed to be doing for your child. It starts with you. You got to advocate for them. If they need speech, your insurance will pay for it. And if you don't have insurance, there are free programs. Look
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
ask somebody, open your mouth. We are encouraging our children to speak up, but you as a parent also have to be you have to be louder than your child for your child.
Yep, yep.
And
And
that's what
you
the
got to
child
show up, just like you said, you got to show up. You got to show up for the difficult moments for your children, the difficult moments. And you do have to eat humble pie because when your kid goes to school, they are with their peers. And so some of the things that you don't expect them to be doing, they are doing, you
Oh,
know. And so, Yeah, so own that, own that, and I'm telling you, I've had to do some of the most difficult things when my child was in. My oldest daughter was in a high school. There were some difficult moments that I had to go into the principal's office and listen to what was being said, and eat humble pie. Have the conversation with your child, but eat humble pie, and then also your kids too. So sometimes your kids. So don't try to pretend that you don't know them, and do it now, because if you don't teach and train your kid, the world will, and the world does not love your kid like you love your kid. And so you want to make sure that you're doing that. We just need to spend some more time taking time. And I know that folks have gone, parents have gone through their own trauma and things like that. I know that. But we're the adults. And even though we've been traumatized, it is so wrong to pass that on to your children. I've had I had a good childhood, but then there's a parallel to it that ain't so good. And I didn't take that out on my children. I made the conscious decision that the buck stops here, and I have enough control over my emotions and how I feel. I'm not pouring that poison into my children. And so we can make the conscious decision that even though we were traumatized, that we go get the help that we need, but we do not need to be selfish and take that out on our children. That's a choice. You are choosing to be mean to your child who cannot really respond back to you. And we can pick and choose who we mistreat, don't we?
We do.
We know who we can get away with mistreating, who won't hurt us back, or that we are not concerned about them hurting us back. And this is real talk, because we don't need to do that. Our children are suffering. Our children are suffering, and they need us to speak out on their behalf. And then we also need to teach them that if their parents don't ever show up, to teach them how to navigate. That's when the community comes in and says, "Hey, we still want you to survive, even when your parents don't want to show up. We still want to show up as a community, not for you to disrespect your parents, but to help you to navigate around that obstacle that may cause you to forfeit your own future." That's what bridging the gap, strategizing for student success is really about, is to help that child to succeed against all odds, to tell them that you can still do it. What may be impossible to whoever else can be possible for you. And so that's what it is. And we have tapped on so much. I wanted to share also too, in backtracking on Coach Alonda, what you said in regards to college scholarships and things like that. There is a bait and switch that goes on with that, and so it is very important for parents to not just say, "Oh, I'm going to send my kid to this particular college," because what happens is they'll get there, they'll use the scholarship, and you don't really understand the scholarship. They'll be midstream in school and ain't got no money. And so, regardless of whether they kept the grades up or not, because some of those scholarships, they look like large money until you actually look at the tuition
You got
that
to break them
will
figures
actually.
down for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So those are some of the things that we want to make sure that parents who really, really want to change things in what's going on, and those parents who want privy to information that they may not otherwise have access to. That's what BTG wants to bring to the table, and that's what we've been bringing in the magazine thus far. Those issues that have gone out, and so we want to continue to do that and continue to, yeah, have these discussions in regards to, because our children, that's our seed. And depending on how we nurture it and water it up, will tell us what the harvest is going to be, because the harvest is
That part,
coming. Adulthood is coming.
With us.
right.
So, but anyway, ladies, closing remarks. Dr. P, you want to close us out on your closing thoughts?
One of the things we keep talking about is, how we all grew up a little bit different. But again, as the This is a different world, like you were saying, Coach Alonda. It's just a different world, no matter what. For us, a different world was a television show. For them, it's their real life, and everything is real life. And I say that to say, maybe part of it is just even as adults and as parents, being able to show our kids all the things that are going by the wayside, and that's part of what we want to do in the magazine. And like you said, with the discussion, one of the even the most basic things, I keep thinking about the fact that kids don't know how to write anymore. Not the art of writing, actually don't how to do cursive. We as a people, very specifically, at one point, the only thing we were allowed to do was maybe know how to do an X. So when we talk about the art of what we're showing and teaching our children, it starts with us. And that's even something I'll challenge everyone that's listening with us. Start sharing some of the things that you learned that our kids don't get to learn anymore. And now it's up to us to give them those skills. And that what they are survival skills. What we do as parents is to show our children how to be adults, survive, being humans, being grown ups, making it to old age, all of those factors, the things, and to become really, literally productive citizens. We say that like it's a weird thing to say, but we want to be able to live in neighborhoods and communities where we are productive with each other, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we have to remember the things we're taught that were the best things about our childhood and growing up. Teach them to your children because they're going to need them. And you, like you said, Marissa, you love them. So teach them, give them everything that you can give them because you love them. That's
Mhm.
it.
Coach Yolanda.
So I want to say, we always go by the expression the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but I want to employ you that the roots never leave the tree. And so I think that we owe our children our due diligence to make sure that we are transparent with them. Maybe you didn't have all the skills on your when you begin the journey of parenting, and maybe you've developed and became a better person, or you're still becoming. But I feel like you owe kids transparency. Like Yana always says, tell them your story. You owe them your story because you hope to facilitate that constant growth in your legacy. Legacy is so important. We talk about all the time we want to break generational curses, but I think that sometimes we are just saying it, and we're not thinking about that. Mountain doesn't just become a mountain. It starts as a grain of sand and it turns into a pebble and then it turns into a rock. Then a rock turns into a boulder and then many boulders become mountains, right? And so I want to implore you to stop looking at the grain of sand as a small thing. I want you to think about it when it's a grain of sand in every stage of the way. And maybe you don't want that one grain of sand to ever make it to a mountain. And so I just want you to just advocate for yourself,
Mhm.
advocate for your legacy. Like I really want to encourage my parents out there to take that on your back. I mean, and wear it like your garment of salvation, like because you got to save you and you got to save your legacy. Maybe grandma didn't know no better, maybe mama didn't know no better, maybe they weren't graduates, maybe, but the thing is it can always change. You know what I'm saying? You can always change it. The change can start with you, and even if you feel like it's too far gone for you, implore your children to be the change, your legacy.
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
do I mean it our legacy depends on it, everybody, because we're all an intricate piece of the puzzle. So if your legacy's out of whack, that might trickle into somebody else's legacy, right? And so we have a responsibility to God and to our legacy to do our part. Do our part. It starts with you, one person at a time.
Yeah. Each one teach one, each one reach one, right? And so that's it for us today. Like we said, parenting is not about being perfect. It's about doing our best and applying our best. And as Coach Yolanda said, whatever support or services that you need, there is no shame in getting them. The travesty is not getting them and allowing the child to and even yourself to continue in you know trauma or emotional damage or a lack of self-confidence. getting the help that's required to transform behavior, transform mindset, build confidence. Um, it's just critically important for our young people. And the sooner that you own that, the sooner that you get that help, the sooner you can move past it, right? So why not get it now so that you can make the changes necessary and it'll be in your past, because nothing lasts always. You just got to go through the process and shame the devil and get the help, you know? And like you said, Coach Alonda, it's like we talk a good game, but now we need to be about what we talk about. Walk the walk, walk the talk, and get it done. Because, you know, the evidence of your parenting is in the fruit. Is it bearing good fruit? Are you bearing good fruit? And it's not about being perfect, because I can tell you, my kids were not perfect. There are moments I had to go go like this and deal with stuff. But one thing is for sure, never run away from it. Never run away from it. You know, go towards it and get through it. You're gonna Tomorrow's gonna come, and that this too shall pass, you know. But let's get to a place where we are seeking the support and help we need, and let's start beginning to rise back up as a community and become the village that our children, without a shadow of a doubt, need. We need them to return to a heart that cares about others. We need them to care about the life of someone else, all the lives that are being taken, and things like that. Is because these kids are hurting. The only way another child can take another child's life, or a human can take another human's life, is because they are absent of love and empathy. There is a loss and a disconnect that happens, that they are so angry about what has been happening in their lives that they have no regard. That is because, unless it's some preset set condition that's going on, uh, that is simply because they did not feel loved. They felt abandonment. They felt mistrust, or they've experienced mistrust. That's wounded, hurt people and traumatized people hurt other people. So we've got to return to a place where we love our children in our community, and that we love them so much we don't want to see them go the wrong way, and that we put our own selfishness aside as adults and start returning to caring about our young people. That is it. We are out. This has been a great dialogue, a great conversation around our young people, their heart, their emotions. Let them be seen and heard. We are out, people.